Welcome to Content Camp.
Hello, everybody, indeed. Welcome to another edition of Content Camp. Today we are here with Harry Howe and Josh Toyer. They are here to talk about the Patty Melt Quest. Harry, Josh, we're so excited to have you guys here.
Well, thanks for having us. It's a real treat.
Yep. So let's start off real simple. What is a patty melt?
So, a patty melt, I would describe it as a burger derivative, if we can. It's made up of the actual burger patty, obviously, and it's normally made on rye bread with Swiss cheese and grilled onions. Variations do exist. Most of the time you'll find people swapping out rye for Texas toast or something like that, or like different cheeses. But for the most part, that's what a patty melt is.
And there are some interesting variations. We have found that there are regional variations on the patty melt. And so, for example, in California, you might find it served with smashed avocado or something like that. And in Texas, they might put a little barbecue sauce on it. So it is one of those things that has some regional twists that makes it particularly interesting. But here in the Midwest is a place where you can find a lot of good patty melts. And so, yeah.
And we understand that you're doing this quest. It's the Patty Melt Quest. Can you tell us more about that?
Patty Melt Quest.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Josh graduated from Cedarville University back in December. And when he graduated, he came to do an internship with me at Howe Leadership. And one of our goals was to help him develop some web development skills. And this seemed like a fun way to do that. And thus, we have the website pattymeltquest.com that listeners can check out. And you'll find lots of information and the various places where we've been, places that if you enjoy patty melts, places that you'll want to try, and a few to avoid.
So you're rating them on this website, and you're trying to find the best patty melt in Central Indiana. Where do you get the best patty melt so far in Central Indiana, and how do you rate them?
Go ahead, John.
So, in answer to the first one, the LA Cafe over in Whitestown is currently up at the top. There were some others that came close, but we haven't found anything that we'd call better yet. In terms of the rating criteria, we have taste, authenticity, value, and atmosphere, as well as something for the overall experience. But taste is self-explanatory. The authenticity is, I explained earlier, the closeness to that original patty melt recipe. You know, rye bread, Swiss cheese, grilled onions. If even one of those things is out of whack, then the patty melt isn't going to taste as good. And value is whether or not the quality of the patty melt is good for the price you pay. And atmosphere is the atmosphere of the establishment. So we rate them on that scale, and it all kind of averages out. And then there are also Grandpa's leadership lessons. Those aren't included in anything, but they are a good part of the site.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Leadership is my passion, Kennedy, and so every time I sit down and have a patty melt, I can't help think about the leadership there in the restaurant that has contributed or detracted from what's being served. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, there is a restaurant that comes to mind that we were especially welcomed by the server, and this server really seemed to really go above and beyond in terms of feeling some ownership about how we liked the food, and it was almost as though he had prepared it himself, and he really showed a great deal of ownership, and that speaks to really good leadership there at that restaurant. And then there are some other restaurants at the other end of the scale where our orders were mixed up and, a lot of mishaps. And it just showed some degree of carelessness and inattention to details that goes back to the leadership of the organization. And, of course, I'm hoping that these same lessons and things that I'm pointing out can be applied to the people who are looking at the website and their own organization.
And so you told us why you got the quest, but why the patty melt? Is there like a specific reason, or is that just the burger you chose?
I touched on this earlier, but like I said before, if even one part of the patty melt is out of whack, then the whole thing isn't going to taste as good. So it's a lot harder to review than a typical burger because you're looking at, how everything comes together. It also didn't help that I had already done, well, it did help, but I'd already done a thing like this with actual burger places with my dad down in Jackson, Michigan. So, doing burgers again, it would have been fine, but the patty melt is more unique.
I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you've been to a lot of places yet, but I mean, at a certain point, are you going to get sick of eating so many patty melts? I mean, do you get the same one every time? I know you said there's a few variations, but like to keep it true, I don't know. I mean, you must get sick of it at some point.
We haven't yet. And we've never done more than one in a single week. And so we kind of space it out. And when we are there, we're kind of on a mission, and it's serious for us, but certainly it is enjoyable. So we have not reached the point where it's kind of like work.
Yeah.
And it's an enjoyable enterprise for us. And from time to time, we'll see something else on the menu and go back for something a little different.
Because speaking for myself, it's always kind of disappointing when I go to a restaurant and I'm like, they have a nice double bacon cheeseburger with something good on it, or just any burger with bacon on it, and I have to get a patty melt.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm locked into my food choice the instant I walk in.
So you mentioned like customer service is definitely a part of it. So if you have you ever walked into a place where the server just like won't look you in the eye? They don't like this food. You mentioned food gets mixed up. It's just not a good experience. What do you take as like good experience to this just wasn't good for me?
Well, of course, as Josh mentioned, that the service is just one component of the criteria, but we're looking for a number of factors, and it's very subjective. But is the order, some of the things that we would be looking at, is the order coming back exactly as we had asked for it? And typically in a better place, they're going to ask you, how do you want it cooked? And so I like mine medium. Josh likes his, medium well. And so most often, they get that right. He usually has his with fries. I usually have mine with coleslaw. And so there's sufficient complexity there that if it comes back right, we know that they're doing it well. But also, there are some things that other smaller factors that I notice. And I'm thinking about one place in particular. When we sat down, one of the things that I noticed was that the salt and pepper shakers didn't match. And that wasn't, that isn't going to detract from the experience, but it was kind of a yellow flag that maybe people don't care. And in fact, unfortunately, it was an indicator because things just went downhill from there. So there are things such as that. And on the plus side, as I had indicated, somebody who really makes you feel welcome and is very personable, as opposed to kind of just rushing around and maybe it takes a long time to get your order, and by the time you do get it, the food may have cooled off a bit. Those are some of the things that go into how we would evaluate that.
And you think that all has to do with like the leadership, as you put?
I do. So you might think to yourself, well, that's really the servers, an indication of the server, but who is responsible for hiring, training, motivating, all of those things? It goes back to the leadership.
And then so what is you get the patty melt, and if it's good, if it's made how you wanted it, how do you rate the quality?
Well, we talk about it for one thing, but we're looking at taste, and I'll let Josh, give how he is doing it. But we usually we're tasting it and kind of savoring it, as well as looking at what we've got. Sometimes, we'll be debating what kind of cheese is this that's on here. And sometimes, in some cases, we've decided, well, it's a slice of Swiss and a slice of something else. But it's taste, and it's also appearance.
I think primarily I'm more of the person who does a lot of the food tasting and that kind of stuff, and Grandpa's the one who reviews more of the ambiance and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because I more care about the food, and that's kind of my priority when I go to these things. And that's Grandpa likes the atmosphere, and I'm not opposed to atmosphere, but I'm really worried about, I'm going out. I'm not typically paying money, but, if I'm going out to eat, we're going to be paying money for, if it's substandard food, I'm I don't want to go here. So, again, that's more of what I do. The other thing, too, is he says we debate these things only rarely. A lot of times, we're in agreement mostly, or at the very least, I'm I sort of agree, and I don't really care enough to push back on this. So
Josh has the more discriminating palate for the.
Here's a tip for you: always order water at these places and take sips in between. It helps clear your taste buds.
That is a good tip.
But even beyond what Josh has said, Josh will also be looking for how is it assembled. So not only how is the taste, but we have been to places where they had two patties, in this big piece of bread, and all the meat was kind of on about half the sandwich.
Yeah.
And, it just wasn't the ingredients themselves.
You're taking like a bite of bread
Yeah.
every time.
It just wasn't carefully assembled.
And I mean, I'm not going around looking for specific foods, but sometimes, you'll go to a restaurant and it just looks like it was not put together with a lot of thought. And I think that's like sometimes something looks so unpleasing or unappetizing that you just don't want to eat it. So I think that is an attention to detail that I hadn't really thought about. But it's interesting that you're taking that into how you rate them.
Well, I'm not, a scientist, but somehow all of our senses are connected. And so there are multiple senses that are contributing to our taste. There's the taste buds, but we're also smelling things, touching things, and all of that kind of contributes to, what goes on in your brain in terms of processing. Is this enjoyable?
Mm-hmm. And I think, if I remember right, you're going to be engaging at least 4 of the 5 senses. I don't think you're necessarily going to want to hear the food. I think
It's like sizzling.
Yeah. If you can hear the food, I think not necessarily there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but there's still that's not super normal. Whereas, seeing the food, and if it doesn't look good, you're not going to want to eat it.
Exactly.
And if it doesn't, it's not necessarily feel good, doesn't need to feel good, but you're going to have a tactile sensation even if you're just using a fork and a knife, you can still feel it through those utensils. And your sense of smell is closely connected to your taste. So if it doesn't smell that good, your taste won't be primed for it.
And I feel like the presentation of it might even go back to the leadership, because it's probably these people who don't really care. They're just trying to get these orders in, so they're just kind of throwing it together and sending it out. But then you mentioned who's hiring them, who's training them. So I think that I would think that would go back to the leadership. Do you?
I would agree with that. And part of that training would be, having standards in terms of, how the food is presented. So yes, most definitely.
So we mentioned where to get patty melts and how you rate them, but so and how they're assembled is the bread. So when you bite into the patty melt, are you looking for a crunch, or is it supposed to be soft?
Well, probably neither. How would you describe, Josh, what?
See, it's difficult because I think mainly what you're looking for, it's not a crunch in as much as, because meat doesn't really crunch, and the meat's kind of the main thing. The bread should be toasted, and so the bread should get a little bit of crunch, but not that much. If your meat is soft, you need to send that back to the kitchen. That's raw, or at the very least, there might be something wrong with it. So you should probably ask them to cook it again. But, I think it's more, you're going to feel a bit of both. Mostly, it's going to be on the softer side, but it should still be nice and firm. Because when your teeth bite into that, you need enough pushback that it feels good, and then the juices. And I'm not a culinary expert, but what I can tell you is, it probably shouldn't be either super crunchy or super soft. There'll be elements of both in there, and I think that's a bit of what makes the patty melt so difficult to pull off, because there's a balance of so much you need to put in there.
And so I think maybe thinking about it a little differently, as opposed to thinking of a single sensation. What the beauty of the patty melt is how all of these ingredients come together. And so we've had an occasion where the individual ingredients all seemed to be good, but it just didn't come together as we would have expected. The end result just wasn't, for reasons we can't explain, it just wasn't as satisfying. But the individual ingredients themselves seemed to be good. It just seemed to lack some kind of magic or something. It was, I don't know. We were disappointed.
So do you have a little leadership lesson for each review?
Yes.
So what would have been yours for that one, that specific instance?
I do not recall that one in particular. I think, do you remember what it was?
If I remember correctly, it was something along the lines of attention to detail, kind of the same thing we've been talking about for a while. So I think...
Well, it's starting to come back to me. The fact that it's not all science. There's some art to it and some things that can't be quantified. And it just seemed as though things were done in some kind of clinical fashion, as opposed to with a little bit of imagination and artistry, something that neither of us could put our finger on and say, this is missing.
Yeah.
It's just that it lacked some spark.
I get it.
Can you get a patty melt anywhere, or is it only specific places?
Well, you definitely can't get them anywhere. And
you can't order one at your local Mexican place. I can tell you that much.
Yep. What we have found is that most pubs, and it's kind of pub food, and so that's the place where we're most likely to find them, but not exclusively.
When I was doing the burger quest with my dad, he told me, the best place to find the best burgers is in bars and taverns and places that serve alcohol, because they're intended to get you thirsty. So that might play into it. I would say most of the time, if you have a local restaurant that does burgers, they might have a patty melt on the menu. That's where you're most likely to find it.
I worked for the Christmas season at the Chris Kindle Market in Carmel at a booth that sold like German doner kebabs. It was like a little pocket for meat, but we had so many people come up to the booth tell us that when they were in Germany, this was the thing they loved when they were drinking, because it is like, so I have heard that that's like alcohol food. So it doesn't surprise me that it would be at a pub or a tavern. Is that where you've been going, or have you been going to more restaurant style?
Well, we have been searching, and it's becoming more difficult to find places. So we'll go wherever we find something on the menu, and there is a place on the website where you can recommend a place. And so
I did see that.
People can make a recommendation, and that will help us, because we are, running short. It's becoming more more difficult. So when we started this, we do a Google search and come up with quite a few things. To our surprise, now when we do that same Google search on patty melts, well, it's our website.
Well, that's a success.
Are we like 7th from the top? Did you say?
Something like that, yeah. We've moved up from nowhere to
You know what? That's a
First page.
success. I
All
mean,
that work with SEO paid off.
Well, I think we're just about running out of time. It was great talking to you guys about patty melts, and heck, I think I might try one myself.
Well, I
should.
hope you do, and let
we will.
us know
I'm
what you
kinda hungry
think,
now.
and you know where to go if you're looking for a good place.
Yep.
we know just the website to look for.
Yep. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anytime.